Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes. I'm your host, Charlene, and today you are joining me for episode number 101, which is devoted to the Mabon celebration that is happening this weekend. It's a celebration on the wheel of the year, specifically a harvest celebration, and it is the second harvest celebration that we are going to be celebrating. Happens to also be our Fall Solstice, and happens to also be a celebration that we call a Witch's Thanksgiving. So I'm really excited to review the special energy of this harvest and also pull some new things we can do in 2024 to work with it. Before getting into the bulk of this episode, though, I do like to pull a handful of things I did over the weekend from my own personal practice. And if you are a loyal listener, you already know where I was. I traveled back up to the mountains this past weekend, actually took off Thursday morning, so I had that afternoon, all day Friday, and all day Saturday, and then Sunday morning to be up there. Just be. This was a very different trip for me from the one I took back in July with my two boys. I was alone this time, and I've never really traveled alone, which seems absolutely ridiculous when I say that out loud because I've been single forever. But I just don't vacation by myself. So it's always been with my two boys. But this trip called to me while we were all up in the mountains in July. We walked by a little cabin that is meant for probably like a solo person, maybe a couple, but it's a small cabin right on one of the streams. It did, or does, not have a bathroom. Rather, it has a bed, a little potbelly stove for warmth, a very, very small kitchenette, like a college dorm-size fridge, a little table that is like 3 feet by 2 feet, that you can eat at. But anyways, it's in a tiny little one-room cabin, all one room. And it's organized the best it can be to maximize space. But just outside the front cabin door, there is a porch. And this porch is right above the snow-fed stream that rushes down the mountain. Now, I know this stream. I know it well. I have visited it many, many times in the past 55 years. And you know what? Each time when I return, it welcomes me home. Even if it has been many years in between visits, the mountains, streams, meadows, trees, rocks, and wildlife, they all welcome me home. Now, I'm usually at one of the larger cabins with family, but you know what? This small single cabin called to me and asked me to be there in September. And you know what? I said yes. The mountains were a bit different in September from the July visit I had just enjoyed. The spring flowers were gone. The leaves had just started to turn that pretty yellow color, and change for fall. And there was a brisk chill in the air each night that was signaling, the changing of the seasons. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, how lucky am I to have seen and felt both summer and the fall energy in a place that I love so much. So anyway, this was my trip. That was just me, but it had a very different feel from the start. Now, my goal was to use the time to organize my thoughts for both of my businesses, to make space and time for me, just me, before all the hustle and bustle of fall begins, and to come up with a good plan for the next 3 months. Like most of you, fall and winter, I just come alive. I thrive with the energy, with the holidays and the celebrations. Both my boys have their birthdays in the fall, and it's a time that I feel my personal witchcraft practice ignites with a renewed sense of purpose. Now, a big addition to the Witchy Work Wishes arsenal of options is my new Patreon account, and I took time while I was up in the mountains to get all of the October data ready for you. Now, I did not finish, but I have a really good start on this October launch. If you have not gone over to the new account to peek around, I will let you know that there are going to be, or there are right now, 3 levels to choose from. The first one is the Alchemist Apprentice. This is going to give you monthly downloadable resources like maybe a productivity spell, intention setting worksheet, a planner page, something. And then you'll definitely get early access to the weekly podcast episodes there. Again, this is going to be starting with in October. Second tier is called the Mystic Maven. Of course, you're going to get everything in the first tier, and then you're also going to get a monthly oracle card draw to help guide us in our work and business decisions. You will also have a monthly worksheet, kind of like a to-do list template to help keep us organized. And then you're also going to have polls and voting power on upcoming content and workshops. And then the third tier, third level, is called the Enchanted Entrepreneur. Again, everything listed previously you'll have access to, but this will be the only level that is going to have my monthly video releases on working with the moon's phases, the 4 elements, seasonal celebrations with our Wheel of the Year, and other tools to help us in the corporate world and bridge that gap. I'm also going to be doing quarterly video releases here covering corporate witchy goals and how to achieve them, incorporating our witchcraft practices into our jobs, offices, and business world, and other fun and educational videos that's going to really bridge our craft into our corporate worlds. So I already have my checklist of what I need to do each month and a great blueprint, if you will, of what the next 3 months will look like. And this is such a great resource for additional content, detailed worksheets, card draws, and again, if you're in that Enchanted Entrepreneur package, you'll have access to the video uploads, which I am already having so much fun with. And in addition to working on the things I know I need to do in both my businesses and planning ahead with them, I worked in my own personal craft. It was a quiet trip up in the mountains this time, and it called for me to be still on many occasions. Many times just to be still in my own thoughts. At this spot up in the mountains, I'm above 9,000 feet and there is no Wi-Fi. So it's, a lot of that noise and distractions that I can entertain myself with at home are not available up there. I really am forced to be still. And I don't know if it was a meditative type, trance. I don't know. I don't think I would call it that. It was more just like processing my thoughts and translating them into something that made more sense to me. But I have a good example of one, like a really good example. So last week, I talked about one of the new little bottle-fed Fosters, little kittens that I got dying. She did not make it. But something happened around that incident that I want to be aware of on a deeper level. And you know what? For that matter, I have 2 incidents to talk about. I have another example of taking an incident and really working through it to understand it on a deeper level. But I want to share these with you real fast because it may come up with you too. Some event that needs a deeper level of processing to learn the lesson from. So a kitten. Let's do this one first since I started saying it already. I am not going to go into the details like I did last week, so no big trigger warning here on this version, but on a Thursday night, actually around 2:30 in the morning, I lost one of the new bottle-fed kittens I was fostering. I knew it was coming, but despite all efforts, she passed. What happened after is the part I want to talk about now and what I ended up processing more and more up in the mountains this past weekend. So the next night, I was still on the every 2-hour schedule of bottle feeding with the other little kitten that had survived. At the 2:30 a.m. feeding, I walked into the kitchen to warm the formula and make his bottle. The summer heat, I can tell you, was in full gear that night. So my back patio door was open with the screen door shut and locked, to allow for the evening cool air to kind of fill the house. So I walked into the kitchen and looked over to my left to where the screen door is, and sitting outside, smack dab, like right at the door, like his nose was almost pressed against the screen, was a big, huge tomcat. He was beautiful, but he sat right at the door looking in with his back to the yard. He did not scurry away when I walked into the kitchen. He didn't even blink. He just stood there, almost like standing guard. I, of course, said something like, "Well, hi, who are you?" But he didn't move. He stood strong at the door. Even my inside cats were drawn to him, coming up to the door, saying hi, doing their cat stuff, but nothing. Like a statue, he stood there. I fed my little bottle Foster and got him back into his playpen. I turned the lights off in the kitchen and said goodnight to the new visitor. I promptly went back to bed and back to sleep. Before the next shift feeding alarm went off on my phone, I was abruptly woken up from a dream. Or I think it was a dream. Now, after contemplating on, I don't know, it might have been something else, but there was a vision of a dark and very, very scary presence floating around my backyard and hovering over the kitchen back door area, like it wanted to come in. Now, this presence was not small. It was like the size of the entire house itself, and it was trying to get into my house. To describe it, the clearest image I can give you is that it looked just like one of the Dementors from Harry Potter. It was not aggressive in, that it didn't try other doors or entry spots. It just hovered and floated over the back door, looking into the kitchen area. But for some reason, it couldn't get in. Well, this type of dream or image is enough to get me out of bed immediately and make sure everything and everyone is okay. So I first went to the back door to check. Now again, the door is open, but the screen is shut, right? And locked. So you can see outside and that fresh, night air can come in. There was no scary Dementor, but there was also no tomcat. It was just quiet and still. Now the next night at one of the early AM feedings, I heard some meowing. I looked up from the kitchen sink where I was once again preparing the early AM bottle to see the same tomcat up on the neighbor's roof looking in at me. This time, he was very chatty, saying hello, wanting conversation. It was like a different cat, even though it wasn't. I fed the baby kitten first and then cleaned up in the kitchen real quick. I did go outside this time and talk with him. I know it was the very same tomcat. But on that interaction, this new one, he was chatty and friendly and full of things to say. I put a handful of food out for him and said thank you. Not sure why I said thank you, but I did. And that was that. Fast forward a couple of days, and the thoughts of the scary, dark Dementor and the cat were still lingering, unprocessed. I was talking about it with Annika, whom you've heard from many times on this podcast, and I walked through the events step by step, just like I did with you now. There is another step to this that I was missing. On my drive up to the mountains, I thought about it. I replayed it over and over again in my head. I walked through the events, each one. And then, again at the cabin, over and over, I processed. What was I missing? Why was this still lingering in my head? And then I got it. It was a sign and a message. And I believe it was from the goddess Freya. She sent that tomcat to my house to protect me and my pets. That tomcat was there on a mission, and while protecting us, he was stoic. He was a warrior, and he was focused on keeping the dark Dementor from coming in. I am sure the death of the little kitten drew the Dementor energy to my home, right? Like a moth to a flame, the struggling kitten's energy and death called to it. And it came. But interference was provided, protection was given, and my home was guarded. Once the danger was gone, the tomcat was very talkative. I'm sure trying to tell me all about it. He was happy that the space was back to the loving home and loving energy it shares, and he wanted me to know he did his job and that everything was okay again. So that little pile of food I gave him when I said thank you, while maybe I did not know it at the time, it was exactly what I should have done, and exactly the gratitude I should have shown him. Right? Signs, they are all around us, right? They are all of the time. What if we took our own little experiences, just like that, and turned them into one of those sayings? One of those little stories that get handed down over time to help us remember lessons. You know them, right? You've heard them told time and time again. The boy who cried wolf, right? You know that lesson, right? To be truthful. All right, so if you don't know it, it goes something like this. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the hills, there lived a young shepherd boy who tended to the villagers' flock of sheep. He was often bored and lonely as he sat on the hill, watching over the flock with little to occupy his time. The days stretched on endlessly, and the boy's mischievous nature began to stir. One afternoon, seeking excitement, the boy came up with an idea. He ran to the edge of the hill and with all of his might shouted, "Wolf! Wolf! A wolf is attacking the sheep!" The villagers, hearing his frantic cries, dropped what they were doing and rushed up the hill to save the flock. But when they arrived, they saw no wolf, just the boy, laughing at the sight of their worried faces. "There's no wolf," the boy chuckled. "I was just having some fun." The villagers grumbled in frustration and warned the boy not to cry wolf unless there really was danger. They returned to the village, shaking their heads, and the boy went back to tending the sheep, amused by his prank. A few days later, the boy grew bored again. Remembering how quickly the villagers had responded before, he decided to repeat his trick. Once more, he ran to the edge of the hill and cried, "Wolf, wolf! A wolf is attacking the sheep!" Again the villagers came running, but when they reached the hill, they found no wolf. The boy doubled over in laughter at their concern, and the villagers, angrier than before, warned him sternly. "Do not cry wolf when there is no wolf," they said. "You may need our help one day, and we won't come if you deceive us again." But the boy didn't take their warning seriously. He continued to watch over the sheep, feeling smug about his cleverness. Then, one afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, a real wolf crept out of the forest. Its eyes gleamed hungrily as it stalked the flock. Terrified, the boy leapt to his feet and shouted, "Wolf, wolf, a wolf is attacking the sheep!" He called and called, but this time the villagers did not come. They had grown tired of his false alarms, and they thought he was playing another trick. No one believed him. The wolf, without interruption, attacked the flock, scattering the sheep in all directions. The boy watched helplessly as his cries went unanswered, and by the time he managed to chase the wolf away, many of the sheep were gone. When the boy returned to the village that evening, he was met with scornful glares. "Why didn't you come for help when I called?" he asked, desperate and ashamed. An elder stepped forward and said, "No one believes a liar, even when he speaks the truth." The boy learned his lesson that day. Once trust is broken, it is not easily mended. From that day on, he never cried wolf again, for he knew that honesty was more valuable than any prank. And so the villagers, though saddened by the loss of their sheep, forgave the boy, but they never forgot the lesson that he had learned, the importance of trust and the danger of deception. Okay, that's a great little story, and it is certainly a story that has been handed down in my life. My boys know that story. Like many of us, we know that lesson, right? But what if life, your life, is giving you messages like it is me? What if we turn our experiences into moments, into signs, into lessons, just like the tomcat did with me? Freya sent me kittens to rescue, right? And even though I tried, one did not make it. That death called a Dementor-type figure to my home. But Freya intervened and sent protection for me and my home and the other kitten that I was still trying to save. What is the lesson? Is it easily understood like the boy who cried wolf story? That lion is bad? Well, yes, it can be. Maybe the lesson is that signs are all around us. That they are there to be seen, to be felt and processed. This is a big part of my own personal journey this year, and I want to be more aware. I want to see and touch and feel the presence of another world. I want to open my heart and mind to the spirits that are all around me and the other realms that are working their magic in our human space. And this was a sign. It came as one of our familiars, a cat, and I'm thankful that the message kept lingering until I was able to process it. All right, there is another sign too. Annika and I were talking one morning this past week, and she was telling me about her dream the previous night and the magnificent green dragon that she was riding. Now, there is much to this dream, and since it's personal, it's not my place to share. But they were fighting and protecting a castle, much like you would envision from a scene in the series House of Dragons. As she was telling me the details of the beautiful green dragon that she was flying on, a beautiful green dragonfly flew into the office and danced around both of us. It checked out the space, it looked at the tree, it looked at the desks, it checked out the shelves, and it rested a couple times on things in the office. We both had a look of shock on our faces. What are the odds? Honestly, in that very moment of talking about a dream with a big green dragon, that a big green dragonfly would come into the office to visit us. Again, a sign? A message? I think this one was for Annika. but it happened to be at the same location as the message from Freya and the tomcat that she sent for protection. The power of our animals and insects and wildlife and, nature in general is so strong if you see, if you open your eyes and are open to receiving messages. Maybe it had nothing to do with the location and everything to do with the fact that two witches who are sensitive to their surroundings, who are open to receiving messages, happen to be working together and sharing experiences. I don't know. It was a sign, either way. So those are two very specific incidents that I can share with you that have happened this past week. And they have been extremely, extremely impactful to me and my practice. And honestly, they were things I worked on or through while I was up in the mountains. I let my mind wander, and it was to those events that I was drawn. So I worked through them and, processed what needed to be processed. The timing was just perfect to do so. Like you, I'm super busy and things, messages, signs, whatever we want to call them, they get lost in the hustle and bustle of life. So part of making me a better person, making my practice stronger and my connection with nature and our wildlife even more pronounced in my life is this: taking time to slow down, recognize and understand these signs that are given to me. Well, my witchy friends, fall is upon us, and that calls for the big celebration of Mabon. Let's head over to today's episode, which is devoted to our fall solstice. Mabon is a pagan holiday, and it is one of the Sabbats on the wheel of the year that is directly tied to harvest season. Our first harvest celebration was Lunasa, which focuses on the wheat that is harvested. But this harvest celebration is tied to the garden, which I think is why it is more closely related and associated with witchcraft than Lunasa maybe is. Now we are entering the crone phase of the year and really gathering the last of what is to be harvested from our crops and gardens. Mabon is our autumn equinox. Now with Mabon, there really are three main things to focus on. I believe it's about balance, it's about harvest, and it's about slowing down. Now if the moon cycle was broken out over a calendar year, it would be starting the waning phase right now. So the equinox is all about balance. Our day is equal to our night. And the September equinox launches our fall season. Yay! Now, our colors for Mabon, think of our harvest and fall colors here. We want to pull and work with our yellows, orange and red colors, brown and gold, and then beautiful colors and tones of green. With our animals, it is all about the blackbirds right now. One of my favorites. Also the eagles and owls, the wolf and stags, and even the wild geese. For our mythical creatures, fall is time for gnomes. Now with our herbs, Mabon really is about cinnamon, clove, sage, rosemary, apples, and more apples, pine, maple, pears, frankincense, myrrh, thistle, tobacco, yarrow, and basil. With our crystals, this is a good time to work with citrine, amber, tiger's eye, clear quartz, smoky quartz, adventurine, lapis lazuli, and sapphire. Symbols for Mabon are going to be our acorns, pine cones, cinnamon sticks, grains from harvest, and then kind of a cornucopia of apples and harvested fruits. Okay, with our deities, first and foremost, the Welsh god Mabon. Now, Mabon is known as a divine child in that he was stolen from his mother when he was 3 days old, and then later rescued, like 3 years later, by one of King Arthur's men. Now, the god Mabon is both the oldest and the youngest of gods, representing that balance just like the fall equinox has, that halfway point when light and dark are equal. So Mabon is known to, the god Mabon is known to protect wild animals and the forest. So other Mabon deities are going to include Persephone, who's a Greek goddess. She is the daughter of Zeus and known as a queen of the underworld. Demeter is another Greek goddess of agriculture, fertility, and the cycle of life and death, who I believe is Persephone's mother. Now, if you follow Greek deities, Demeter is one of the original 12 Olympians. Now, if you follow the old Norse ways closer than the newer Wheel of the Year celebrations, the Norse really only had two seasons. They had summer and winter. You were in one or the other. So the one that is closest, I think, to Mabon, and I'm not going to say this right, is Tvinamur. Tvinamur, something like that. So, oh my gosh, sorry guys. It basically means 2 months, and it was a signal that the final month of summer had come, the end of their summer. So harvests needed to be wrapped up at this time before the air turned cold. The witches' celebration of Mabon, this really is our Thanksgiving. And we know, at least in America, United States, Thanksgiving is celebrated in November. And controversy aside, the images of pilgrims and indigenous people sitting side by side is probably not realistic. Further, if we think about it, November is not harvest season. In fact, the time to harvest crops and our garden goodies has long passed by the time the end of November comes around. But September is. It is harvest season, and it happens to be the second harvest of our year. So this is a much more realistic time to celebrate and be thankful for all we have grown and stored away for the cold winter months that are coming up. So a witch's Thanksgiving is honestly just that. Our first harvest was all about grains and ground fruit. Our second harvest, Mabon, is all about the harvesting of the fruits on the trees. So hosting an amazing witch's Thanksgiving can be a fun celebration using apples, cider, apple pie, pumpkins, grains, breads, and our garden herbs. Think of adding your harvested potatoes and carrots and onions now too. So if you're able to have a bonfire or, have a kitchen simmer pot going on the 22nd, that is another great way to celebrate too if feasting is not on the ticket. All right, Mabon 2024. What are we doing this year? Well, I pulled some good ideas from last year's celebration, and I wanted to review them real quick because I'm actually going to be doing a couple of them again this year. But I also wanted to pull some new ideas for us. Mabon is a great time for kitchen witchcraft. And really anything made with special intentions for Mabon are going to bring energy to our craft. Specifically, if you can focus this harvest on things tied or recipes tied with apples. The apple itself has a deep history with witchcraft as it tingles and ties love, health, immortality, and fertility into our practices. With the Celts and the Druids, Irish law, like really old Irish law, said it was punishable by death if an apple tree was cut down. That is how important and sacred the apple was to their culture. Both the Celtic underworld and the Greek underworld had an apple tree as a significant symbol. For the Irish, the apple tree gave food to the dead during the cold winter months, and with the Greeks, Hades and Persephone used an apple branch to enter the realm of the gods. And then back in medieval times, farmers who grew apples would hold ceremonies to invoke a successful harvest. Love spells are all about apples, right? Well, not all of them, of course, but apples are certainly a big part of them. And if you're doing any magic that calls for the use of blood, you can usually substitute apple cider for it. But love and romance, apples, and all parts of the apple tree really, like the wood, the leaves, the fruit, and flowers, all of it can be used in love and romance spells. For health, we know the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, apples are a part of a bunch of herbal recipes for health. Apples are said to help with keeping our liver healthy, our gums healthy, and even our guts healthy. And I don't know about you, but when I was little and got sick, applesauce was usually on the menu along with some saltine crackers and ginger ale. The significance of the apple was not just held to Celtic and Greek traditions, though. The Norse also valued apples because they believed it kept the gods from aging and had a special spot in their underworld, too. Freya and Hel, the queen of the Norse underworld, have apples as part of their goddess symbols. Apples were associated with, food for the immortals across many, many cultures. Why? Well, it's all about that beautiful 5-pointed star that's in the middle of every apple. Of course, we can do magic with apples at any time of the year, right? Just depends on what you're drumming up at the time. But think of all the energy we have right now with Mabon and apple season that makes it a very, very powerful time to work with apples in our practice. Now, with apple season comes a great time for spells with apples. That special apple pentagram represents or can represent the 4 elements and the spirit. The element of earth is all about the material world, our Mother Earth. Air is all about our ideas and our conscience, the mental realm. Fire is our energy and our potential. Water is all about our emotions and the astral world, our unconscious. And then spirit is what oversees it all and keeps everything in check, flowing correctly. It can also represent the 5 senses, with the circle around it being the 6th sense. The pentagram can represent a bunch of things in nature. Many of our witchy garden herbs have the 5-point theme to them, with their 5 petals and leaves. Even Da Vinci used the 5 points in his human proportion drawing. And of course, there is the famous apple in the biblical story of Adam and Eve. Now, one of my favorite childhood books, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, has the apple tree front and center, as the wardrobe is made from a magical apple tree. And let's not forget the famous apple handed to Snow White. Oh my gosh, did you guys see there's a new rendition of Snow White coming out in 2025? So apples. They are super significant in many cultures. The Greeks knew apples to be all about love, fertility, and beauty. The Celtic culture knew apples to be about immortality and the underworld. The Norse tied eternal life, rejuvenation, and youth with apples. And the Chinese culture knew apples to be about beauty and peace. Christian culture knew apples to be about temptation and sin. So what can we do with our apples in our magical witchcraft world? So these are pulling from last year, but a lot of them I'm going to use again this year, so it's a good time to do a quick reminder. First one is going to be apple garlands. We're going to, tie into that 5-pointed star energy that naturally forms in the middle of every apple. To do this, you're going to want to cut your apples widthwise, right? And then string the pieces of apple together so the 5-pointed star shows in the middle. This garland can be added to our witchy spaces, altars, even in the office, right? It's a great fall decoration. We love our number 13. And if you have your own garden, after you've completed your last harvest, bury 13 apple tree leaves in your soil somewhere to help ensure a good harvest next year. I was lucky to have been in the mountains for Friday the 13th that we just celebrated, and it happened to be on that day that I did my meditations and workings through the incidents at home with Frey and the Tomcat and the Dementor. I wish now I'd eaten one of my apples that day that I brought up with me, but for our garden, bury 13 apple tree leaves. It will bring good energy for next year's harvest. Number 3, bake a fresh apple pie. Can't go wrong with this one either way. Now, I like mine a bit more rustic with nice chunks of apples and a nice buttery crumble streusel topping instead of that second pie pastry on top. But I've been making my apple pies for a very long time. I don't even have a set recipe I use anymore. I just go off of memory and kind of make it organically. But apple pies are a great option when incorporating work and home balance and bridging our practices into our jobs. So if you can, make an apple pie for the office and your coworkers. Oh, it's a wonderful way to share the Mabon celebration with them. Hot apple cider, yum! This is another great kitchen witchcraft project that I will probably be doing this year, and something that I can bring in and balance with my corporate world. Another one is going to be just cored out apples with little fall candles in them. It's a fun and cute way to decorate both at home and at work. This is one great way to bridge our fire magic with the apple season and Mabon too. It's a beautiful way to decorate, especially if you have that apple garland that we were just talking about. The apple candles will complement them perfectly. And last, I've got make apple butter. Apple season will last for a while, honestly, through Samhain. So it is on my list this year. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it before Sunday, but I just made a peach jam and plum jam. But I have the best childhood memories of fresh homemade bread that is then toasted, and then my mom's homemade apple butter on top. So I would love to have a go at it this year and try making apple butter myself. Okay, so Let's take these 6 Mabon activities and add a little, let's do a little dab of witchcraft with them. Let's start with cinnamon. This amazing spice that I love so much goes way, way back with our connections to the spirit world and protection, as it was found back in 2000 BC, old Egyptian tombs, as part of their mummification process. Now, for us today, it's still all about protection and connection to the spirit world. But also, cinnamon is about strength. It's used to amplify our spells. It's about love and money and health. So personally, I use cinnamon all year long. I add it to my morning coffee every day. But as we are coming into fall season, the second equinox of our calendar year, just as much as it is apple season, it is cinnamon season too. And with each of these 6 options that I just went through, I would add a little bit of cinnamon and a spell to each of them. So what type of spell? Well, that depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for protection? Yes, please then. Cinnamon is all about protection. It helps guard us, it helps guard our homes, and it helps guard against negative energy, as well as provide a nice little veil of spiritual protection. Are you looking for love? Oh, cinnamon's perfect. I use this property in my witchy baking often. Cinnamon is the perfect companion for love, romance, passion. It's perfect for family. It's like a comforting blanket of love for our family and friends. Add cinnamon when you need strength. Add it to any of your workings. This goes for energy and motivation too. Cinnamon is love. If you are looking for wealth and abundance, cinnamon is perfect here too. Adding a splash to your spell for prosperity will enhance your energy. And if you're looking for spirituality, absolutely. Cinnamon has close ties to divination, and it is known to help us with spiritual connections. So cinnamon is associated with the fire element and the sun. It is tied to Thursday, which is Thor's day. It's a very masculine energy and strong energy to work with. Now, while cinnamon, is going to help with our garlands, leaf planting, apple pie, apple cider, apple candles, fall baking. There are other ways we can incorporate cinnamon into our craft for Mabon. First one is to sprinkle it around our home. I know some witches use cinnamon at their front door on the first of each month. I personally don't do that one, but I know it's really popular right now. Cinnamon does purify and protect, so I think using it in our homes in general is good. Now, if you have a green thumb or you're testing your hand at houseplants, adding cinnamon, just a little itty bitty dash to the water before you feed them is wonderful. This goes for our office plants too. It will help purify and protect them just as it does our home. Now, how big is your wallet? Can you fit a little cinnamon stick in it? Even if it's just a tiny little stick? Well, not only will your wallet smell good, you'll also be attracting more money. Be sure to say a good little spell before adding it so your intentions are connected. But the use of cinnamon is a great way to tie into the prosperity factor that the spice itself has. And then fourth, I've got just add cinnamon to any of your workings. It can be added to candles, to oils, to our simmer pots, to our garden soil. It can be used with our incense and honestly many of our potions just to help enhance the spell. I have even used a cinnamon stick to cleanse my space in my office. It helps all around. I personally love cloves in spell work. Just like cinnamon is about protection, love, and prosperity, so are cloves. And just like adding, a small cinnamon stick to your wallet will help bring you money, a tiny clove will work just as well. It smells equally good and will bring just as much abundance and wealth to your pocket as the cinnamon stick will. But back to Mabon and, the launch of our fall season that's coming up here. Cinnamon and cloves are perfect additions to anything with apples, or really any of our spells and personal crafts this time of year. All right, Mabon, it's about balance. Our days and our nights are equal right now, and we know it is the time of Libra and those faithful scales that show the balance with everything. Balance to me means both sides of the scales, both sides of the pendulum, right? The light and the dark, the sun and the moon, the feminine and the masculine. Both sides of everything is needed for us to be complete. All parts are needed to balance life. As humans, we're going to go through some very painful experiences, some really dark and scary times. And as dark and scary as they are, we need to experience them. We need to understand them, grow and mature from them to have a balanced life. It's just how it is. And now at Mabon, nature is at its own balance, equal day and night. We know it will be very dark soon, right? The pendulum swings to both sides. But right now with Mabon, it's resting evenly in the middle. It's equal. And for me this year, this, equal balance energy that is naturally happening, I want to incorporate that into my practice with some new things for the Mabon celebration. For us working witches who are, in that Monday through Friday grind of the corporate world, when Sabbats and festivals and holiday celebrations fall on a weekend, well, gosh, it just makes things easier, doesn't it? Now, in my practice, I will definitely be working with apples, with cinnamon and cloves again this year, and using some of those options I just mentioned. But I wanted to add the component of balance, especially now when the seasons are so equal, and incorporate that into my Mabon activities. So, what does balance mean to us? And what steps can we take to help achieve a better, harmonious state between the extremes of our lives? First and foremost, I personally don't want to live in the middle. In thinking about that pendulum, if I lived where it settled in the center, always lived there, I would miss out on so much. On life, on experiences, on the very things that will shape me and give me opportunities for growth. So by no means do I want to exclude the swings of the pendulum. They are a part of the human experience that we are all going through. What I do want to celebrate with Mabon is this moment in time when I can take a breath, resting in the middle, and appreciate the fact that I do in fact feel pain, that I do in fact feel joy, and that I have those extremes. But right now, as the day and nights are equal, I can be equal too. So here are some things that I'm going to be incorporating into my Mabon celebration this year, and I hope you are able to use one or two or all three of them. The first one is going to be create a Mabon gratitude altar. I'm going to set up a seasonal altar with, symbols of Mabon, like apples, as many apples as I can get on there, some pumpkins, some corn, some really pretty autumn leaves. I'm going to have some candles, like orange, red, and gold ones in the space as well. Something that I can light and take a moment and just be grateful. I will have a couple little offerings there, maybe some fruit, bread. I can grab anything apple, right? That's going to be the best. But definitely work with a Mabon gratitude altar this year. Second one I'm going to be doing is an actual Mabon harvest feast. This is going to be some type of meal that I can prepare only using seasonal ingredients like squash, apples, maybe some root vegetables. But before eating, I want to, say a blessing, say a thank you for the abundance of the season. I probably will make a loaf of bread. Not sure. But, something that really brings in all of the seasonal ingredients to one special meal. And lastly, I would like to perform a balance ritual. Since Mabon represents that balance, that equal day and night, I would like to perform a ritual focused on balancing different aspects of my life. For this, I will be lighting 2 candles, one for the dark and one for the light. And I'm going to meditate on what areas in my life need a little bit more harmony. And then use the energy of the equinox to set intentions for finding that equilibrium in my work, my relationships, and my own personal growth. Now for the office and my witchy work wishes, I'm definitely going to be celebrating the equinox, the fall solstice and Mabon with decorations, apples, baking from my witchy kitchen. So my office smells amazing and my staff have nice full bellies of homemade goodies that I made with love and lots of powerful intentions. And then in my personal practice, I'll be doing some of those balancing rituals at home. For us in our practices, Mabon is such a great and amazing time of balance, gratitude, and a good time for reflection. It marks the autumn equinox when, again, our day and our nights are of equal length, symbolizing a moment of perfect harmony, if you will, between light and dark. As one of the 8 Sabbats of the Wheel of the Year, Mabon really is our second harvest when the crops are gathered in preparation for the coming winter. So it is a time of thanksgiving for the abundance of the earth and the fruits of labor that we have had throughout the year. Witches use this Sabbat to reflect on what we have accomplished and harvested, both in a literal and metaphorical sense, and really give thanks to the blessings that we have received. It also serves as a reminder, though, for inner balance and introspection. Just as the earth shifts from summer's warmth to winter's cold, Mabon invites us to reflect on the balance in our own lives between work and rest, giving and receiving, the light and the shadow within. Many of us are going to perform rituals focused on achieving equilibrium. I know I will be, but also healing and, again, preparation for that darker half of the year that is coming. Mabon really is about celebrating the harvest, balance, and gratitude, and the transition into a quieter time, more introspective season. This is our time of year. Well, I did write a really nice Mabon poem last year that I would love to read for you again this year. I will go grab it and the information on our beautiful moon, full moon, that is happening right now, and I will be right back. All right, first, the Mabon poem, and it goes. Cinnamon spells and living well, in a balanced life I seek. I call to you the autumn hue of mystery and mystique. As I stir my roux with intentions to add my magical flower, I take this time to make it mine, to grow in strength and power. The blackbird is graciously heard this fall September day. She flies and glides her magical wings over golden bales of hay. I bake and make my witchy food with mystery and technique, and with my spells, the autumn bells are crafty and unique. Balance time with this Mabon rhyme in the autumn's hue was asked, and so it was, and justly does, protect the spells I cast. All right, my witchy friends, our moon right now, oh goodness, it's everything. Everything's happening right now. We have 3 biggies. Full moon. Really started yesterday. I know we're still feeling full moon today. This is our harvest moon. It is the full moon that is closest to the autumn equinox, so it is a super moon because the moon is at its closest point to the earth, making it appear bigger and larger than it normally does. So we also happen to have a partial lunar eclipse going on right now. Same night, last night, as our super harvest moon. My understanding with this type of eclipse is it is a softer version. It's not one that's going to get us all buzzed up. But then we have Mabon and our fall autumn equinox that follows shortly thereafter. It's going to be hitting us this year on Sunday. So we have a bunch of energy this week, right? And this weekend, but it's all good stuff. I don't think any of it is supposed to knock us off our feet right now. So we've got this. I did want to give a quick reminder one more time on the big giveaway with Witchy Work Wishes that is happening right now. So be sure to get your name into the Witchy Cauldron before the drawing on the first week of October to win some really fun prizes. All right, I hope you're having a wonderful full moon and enjoying the energy of the eclipse. I hope you have an amazing weekend and Mabon, and I will talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.